Hey, I'm Sasha, and welcome to Joy is on the Menu. Today's essay, Throwback, was first published October 6th, 2024, and the title is It's Amazing slash Deep Inner Knowing. Some time ago, I realized that I had a habit of overriding or second guessing my deep inner knowing in favor of many things. My chronic not good enoughitis, combined with type A striver ethos, seemed incapable of allowing that emaciated soul muscle to flex and develop. I didn't realize that every time I did what I didn't want to do, or rallied, or pushed through, was an insult to source and a kind of rejection of the natural order of things. I didn't connect the dots that constant motion and activity, along with needing to drink to take the edge off, were indicators that my externally shiny life was not internally appropriate for me. The journey towards feeling better more of the time began with that noticing. Noticing the clench in the stomach, the need to energetically or chemically boost myself, the aversion to free time, and then slowly, bit by bit, reclaim my life and my relationships so they suit me, and not my idea of what I think I should be. And no one has died or disowned me so far, and none of the other things I feared have come to pass either. In fact, my relationships with the people I love have radically improved, and they were okay before. I get to walk comfortably through my daily life without craving or needing all the kinds of escape, validation, or distraction I used to crave. It's amazing. And sorry, there was a PS in my actual blog that I'm reading, and I'm not gonna, well, now I've mentioned it and I'm gonna read it. It says, PS, when craving for these creeps up, I know there's inner work to do. Shopping, over or under eating, TV, phone, romance, travel, interpersonal drama, just like cooking up some drama, drinking and drugging, which I don't do anymore ever, exercise, which I could probably do a little bit more of. But anyway, yeah, this blog PS says, what are your warning signs? And I'm here with Holly Ridgway, my BFF, positivity coach and manifestation expert. And we've been talking a lot about insourcing and the inner coach and even deep inner knowing that DIK and the dick thinking with the deep inner knowing.
Yes, last episode you mentioned, checking with your dick. And I was like, that's great. I'd never heard it before, and I've known you all these years. So I thought it was really cool. And then, as usual, you're just kind of doing this scroll thing, pick a blog, and it really did have great reference to what was on the last episode. So, again, I'm appreciating the continuity that maybe your dick is creating. I don't know. Deep inner knowing.
Yeah, the deep inner knowing, not the anatomical one. People, get your mind out of the gutter. But yeah, and I appreciate you appreciating me, not just to get silly about this, because I'm kind of appalled as I look back on my writing and realize there's so much of the same themes coming out, which is basically how to live more comfortably as oneself, given that life is full of discomfort. And
I like that. And like I said, I feel like because this is kind of the game, it's the whole show of constantly reminding ourselves and giving ourselves permission to be ourselves and not what the culture and society is going to make us. Because let's face it, there's 100 times a day where society and the culture will be trying to dictate our dick. and our deep inner knowing.
Right, or override it. And it
Yeah.
seems like, yeah, like if I could just get my blonde highlights to be a little less brassy or, then I would feel comfortable. And no, I mean, it helps for sure. And you blondes out there, you know what I'm talking about. Like the right blonde does help, but it doesn't, solve the whole problem. So, Holly, what do you kind of, if somebody comes to you with sort of general malaise or mehness,
Hmm.
where do you go first in kind of identifying?
I don't know that my process is, just like, oh, well, I have this trick that I do,
Or
or this
by this.
question that I say. I will, I'll share this concept of deep inner knowing. And like I said last time, it's just like, I call it the small self or the ego self, or
Mm.
the society, the clothes that society told me to put on self, that the masks. And so, learning some discernment about true self versus the persona self.
So does this mean that if I discover my true self, I have to quit my job, leave my family, and move to Bali? Like,
Absolutely
what are we
not.
talking about here?
Absolutely not. In fact, when I first was listening to this, I was thinking that not this past November, but the November prior, and having this really interesting discussion, and my life really profoundly changed at this retreat that I went to, and really reminding me of the true self and the deep inner knowing. It was a discussion that I was having with someone where it was proposed that maybe I stop moving myself around in the world so much and I wait to be moved. And so, and I've heard Abraham Hicks say this, who I've mentioned nearly every episode, but that was my first, I guess, getting acquainted with manifestation and law of attraction, because they're sort of the ABCs in 101. But this concept of don't act until you're inspired to act. So what you're saying, I get it. Like you obviously want to do you do the next indicated right thing. That means I'm still going to handle the responsibilities in front of me because that's what life is offering. Again, there was a line somewhere in there, and this blog post was so rich. I would really recommend somebody go back and listen, because it's really each paragraph could be its own episode of Joy on the Menu. I feel that's how rich this particular post
Thanks,
was.
girl.
So yeah, because also it was like if I'm fighting what is, I'm fighting the whole universe.
Right, the isness. And
So you
a
go,
lot of people talk about acceptance is sort of the cure for what I'm calling malaise, or people might call
hmm
frustration, or
hmm
just not good enough itis. All those things on the debit side of the mental ledger, right? Like I don't want those qualities of mind. And of course, self-acceptance is first. And how can you have self-acceptance if, you're like how I used to be, which is like, who the heck am I? What am I going to be not what am I going to be when I grow up, but who, what's,
hmm
what's actually true for me. And to do that, step one is to sort of stop doing the things like that, drinking to take the edge off,
hmm
like over shopping,
hmm
over under eating, exercising, sexing,
Right.
all the things.
I don't know a human that wouldn't be able to relate to what you're talking about.
Right? We all have our things, and it's not like it's a problem unless it's a problem.
Right.
And
And to know when it's a problem is like the key to life.
well, I think we
'Cause-
do know, but we don't want to know. And so once, certainly once I knew, it was like, oh, crud,
Yeah,
right? Because I'm gonna have to,
right.
I have to stop.
Yeah.
Now that I know this is blocking me from being who I am really and who I want to be,
Yeah.
like how am I spending my time? How am I spending what you talked about before,
The allocation of energy, that
allocation
we
of
have this limited number
energy?
of
Yeah,
awake hours with focus and attention that are
yeah,
available to us.
Yeah, and if I'm spending a lot of time and attention doing stuff to feel okay, isn't really helping me have, and everybody has different values, but for me, it's like, is this helping me have better relationships with the people I love? Is this helping me sort of use my beingness to add value in the world? Do I want to be spending my time this way? Is this really how when I look back on my life and I look at what I was doing, am I going to feel proud or like, oh, crap?
Yeah. I generally, and this reminds me of something that we almost got into, and maybe we will now for next episode, is that there's no right or wrong. I do spend a lot of time with clients talking about there's no right or wrong. There's just, is this taking you in the direction you say you want to go? And so,
That's true. And
reasons.
right, if I'm playing piano versus drums, there's no right or wrong. If I want to be a, investment banker
Some people it
or a
is, and that's
cellist,
what I'm getting at.
yes,
That's what I'm kind of
yes.
pointing to, because realizing that sometimes when I am first working with people, they can be defensive, it's not that bad.
Well, we just saw that client together who was debating, different career paths, and she had had a lot of offers that were sort of related but different. But it was clear that her whole voice and manner
Her
perked
aliveness,
up when she was
sure.
talking about one of them. And
Yes.
then when she was talking about the other one, she was kind of like, well, this makes sense.
Yeah, I'll make it work.
I can see how this might be helpful. And the other one, she was just like, this would be awesome. And she truly was not able to see that in herself or honor it in herself. She was conflicted. She was like, I really don't know what to do.
Hmm.
And we're both just looking at her like, huh.
Well, we're trained to pick up on the nuances. It wasn't like her, she was like, "We yay, happy." It was just there was way more interest, happiness, and aliveness in subtle ways for her that, she wasn't recognizing. So, yeah, I think that's
She needed permission more than direction.
right.
Like
Nice.
at this stage in your life, and she was sort of younger
Yeah.
and
And back to what, all the blogs to you start to seem the same and have the same theme.
right.
It's like needing that permission really is, like, almost like a daily thing. And
Oh
even when
yeah.
I've been at this for decades, I still need to give myself permission to live this level of well-being that I have, because there's still this premise that I've got to pay a price for my well-being. I mean, and that's what the culture teaches us. So moving on from that so that you can find your accuracy, your own inner knowing, that's the whole show. That's the whole game.
And I I know a lot of people for whom doing the traditional path,
Mhm.
they love it. They're actually okay doing that. And
Right.
like lucky them.
I
I
love what you
mean,
said. Right. All
like
these
go
things,
get it.
all these things will work right up until they don't work. That's
Yes.
exactly right. So the person who, yeah, I'm not disparaging anybody who's taking the traditional path and able to check the boxes and, who is the type A success. I mean, everything is wonderful until
It's
you're
not.
right.
And I guess part of my agenda in this phase of life is really shining a light for people who are feeling like maybe this isn't okay after all, and taking some steps to turn it around at that point, not muscling through, grinding down, and waiting until it's like, ding, 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 alarm bells, like I'm going to burn this all down if I keep going, right? We don't have, it doesn't have to get that bad before we say like, huh, maybe I need to look at this and make some adjustments.
I have to tell a story. When I was in my early 20s, it was my very first like real, like full salary, full time, responsible gig. And I remember hoping that the place would burn down
Yeah.
because I didn't really have a
Like
solution.
this is my out.
Yeah.
Like not, maybe ask for some time off, ask
And
for a raise.
we did metal work, so there was a lot of open flames, and it was a fabrication
So
business.
you're saying this was a legit plan, like
This was like
maybe.
maybe something will happen, and it was a very wise woman who said, you could look for another job and put in 2 weeks notice. And it blew my mind because it
Yeah.
was like, no, this is the responsible adult position with the most money I've ever made. You can't say no to that.
Yeah, I worked to get here. This is great. This is a great situation. How could I leave? And it's like, it is a great situation.
Weeks notice.
It was a great situation. It maybe was a great situation even for you for a while. And like clearly, once you start wishing that your workplace burns down, like maybe it's not a great situation for you anymore. Or maybe there's a way to shift things from a place of deep inner knowing that doesn't require that big move, that,
Mhm.
quit, burn it down. And I think you were talking about that earlier, that you're receiving some guidance that like, maybe all that motion was helpful and
Right.
you were absorbing and attending so many,
Hmm.
teachings and workshops and meeting so many different clients and whatnot. And maybe it's a different phase
Well,
of
and the phase
put.
it was being invited, I was bored. And so it was like, so I was sitting with not a lot to do, not a lot of responsibility, enough to cover what was going on. But in the boredom, I would say, oh, I should do this. I should start this. I should work on this project. I should call this person. And it just got to
Oh,
be really unfulfilling. And the actions I was taking, there wasn't a lot of reward from it. And so this proposal of like sit and be quiet as somebody who really wants to act in my highest knowing and let's source through me into the world and in an act of service was like, do you ever sit and get quiet enough to be directed, to be moved rather than move yourself around all the time? And it changed my life when I could just sit for a minute.
uh, and that is a radical undertaking these days in our culture. I mean, I don't see a lot of mainstream influencers or popular people saying, maybe just tolerating a little bit of boredom, what feels like boredom
Uh-huh.
and a little bit of peace and calling in whatever to provide some guidance and spark,
Nice.
and then move from that place of spark.
Yeah.
There's not, and by the way, your results will be more joyful, not necessarily 10x your this or your that, or get your glutes harder, or maybe it will if that's your highest
Well,
excitement.
really, my all of my teachers have said I just did it because I loved it, because I had to do it. It was in my genius. Thank you, Gay Hendricks. But then the results do come.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, maybe it's not immediately going to 10x, but like we're doing this because we love the discussion. We're offering it up. We don't know if anybody's going to listen to this. I mean, and that's the joy of living. And
I'm having so much fun with you. I am having so much fun with you. And I hope whoever's listening to this is also having fun, because that is the point. Or no, fun is too big a word. Joy, which is,
a little spark of joy.
yeah, just like it's nice. It's nice to schmooze with friends. And I mean, that's another thing is I I have realized that I have a recipe for joy for me that is different
Mm-hmm.
maybe from your recipe or my mother's recipe, and that's okay too, but paying attention to what my inputs are is important, because I need some girl time,
Right.
I need my exercise, not too much, not too little, and I pay attention to the inputs and do the right, what I call dosages of socializing and the right kind of socializing, it's pretty predictable that I'll feel better more of the time.
And also last episode, you had mentioned really checking in. How is this really making me feel?
Oh, yeah, that.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Instead of just bulldozing through it, just like, right. Well, I think in today's essay, it talked about, rallying, overriding, and I was really good at that. And I got lots of positive results from that, from doing that fast sprint, no matter what.
mhm.
And yeah, I guess I was going so fast. Oh, there's a very well-known, personal development person who says, have you ever been going so fast you can't stop to get gas? Um, Someone put it in the chat or the comments who that is. Yeah, going so fast you forget to get gas. And yeah,
Right.
eventually you just
Analogy.
run down. And
Yes.
so fast.
Yep, the metaphor. What a great metaphor. It's so true. Like and that's, I always tell you my favorite tool I ever learned was like taking the pause. So,
I mean, for me, where I come from, taking a pause, like, why would you do that? Like, you're going to get run over
yeah.
if you take a pause.
Even this morning, I know there was so much energy to keep going for me and to get started. And I had a feeling that I was getting just a little kind of crowded in my brain. And I like taking my 15, to an hour meditation, but I wanted to keep going. But I wanted the feeling I have after I sit for 15 minutes. And I literally, like, the voice came in my head, like, you can't have both. You have to sit to get the feeling of the clarity and the
Right.
spaciousness. But it was funny that I really had two of me inside ready to, can I go do something? I wanted to feel the way I feel when I sit for 15 minutes. And the voice was clearly like, then you have to actually sit for 15
You
minutes.
have to do the thing to get the thing. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you forced us to meditate for 15 minutes because I feel much better. And I could have revved and gone and done. And I know that. Like, I already have had periods of time where I was a regular meditator, and I know it's great. And I still don't do it a lot of the
Yeah.
time. Like, why? Who knows why?
That's funny because I always say the other definition of insanity is knowing what works for you and not doing it. And so, when you know that a walk works for you or girlfriend time works for you,
Little ego is like, screw you.
I do what I want to do.
My inner rebel is like, no, I'm not going to take a walk. Okay, wait,
But
I
there's
want to
no
say
right or
that
wrong.
differently. My
Is
inner,
it,
yeah,
is it taking you in the direction you want to go? There's no right or wrong. But that the rebel wants to see, like, don't call me wrong.
yeah, yeah. How's it working for you?
The check.
How's what I'm doing working for me? And if it's not, can I, sometimes it feels like a huge ship, and to turn it feels like monumental effort just to discipline myself to sit in a chair or to take a walk around the block. Or I'll try to make dates with moms, I'll see them at pickup or drop off and we'll have a little convo. And it's like, we should get together. And I'm like, great. I'm pulling out my calendar. When do you want to do it? When do you have a window? And it's like, well, I've got this, I got that. No, oh, how about like 7 weeks from Saturday? And it's like, seriously? You're not gonna take half an hour to grab a coffee or take a walk for
Yeah.
7 weeks?
Search
And it's like, okay.
the little moments of joy. Oh, I didn't know I was allowed to just take half an hour for myself when I want with friends for fun.
And then, some of them will call and say, gee, why do you seem so okay? Like, don't you know it's
Huh?
spring fling and play needs to be thinged and this and that? And it's like, yeah, this is all good stuff.
Yeah, you can found people now that you're actually relaxed because you've been checking in with that. How is this really making me feel? And where can I be at choice? Where can I put joy on my menu?
I mean, I don't want to say I'm always relaxed, but
Fair enough.
but it's progress, not perfection, right? It's like where I was versus where I am now. And that's the other thing, like all these influencers, if I use other people as my benchmark, it's always going to be that compare despair. I
Oh,
need to use where was I, before and where am I now and how am I doing? Am I making progress towards how I want to feel and how I want to live?
I'm with you on that in every way.
So, yeah, the menu is big. We can choose a lot of different things, but let's all remember that today joy is on the menu and I'm going to order some up. Hope you do too.